morning. Need some attention real quick. Okay, don't be aggressive. Don't be aggressive. Don't. Okay, we're reading the I think there's 4 levels of sacred contracts, and we're on the second one, heeding the call. Okay, go over there. Go. 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 I'm trying to read. Heeding the call. Let me clear my glasses. Having been awakened, you apply new wisdom to your life at hand. Abraham's first step after receiving his directive from God at 75 years of age was to set out with his wife, family, and possessions and head for the land of Canaan. Awakening to the divine is meaningful only as a step in the journey of spiritual transformation. It is a big first step, to be sure. But then you must act and take another step, as Abraham showed. An old Zen saying has it, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. Heeding the call of the divine within does not mean retiring to a life of contemplation in the mountains of Nepal or a cabin in the North Woods. As rigorous and demanding as the traditional monastic life can be, with its enforced periods of silence and vows of obedience, it is also somewhat of a privileged life in which the responsibilities of raising a family and earning a living were replaced by prayer and study in a controlled environment. Today's mystics are more likely to continue to live in the material world, but with an entirely different orientation and set of values, a challenge that can easily be as rigorous as any cloistered life. Once you feel the stirrings of initial contact with the divine, look for ways to act on that experience. Ram Dass has empathetically that genuine spiritual awakening always manifests as a desire to be of service to others. That service can take a myriad of forms: parenting, teaching, counseling, healing, volunteering, or any form of creative work, as long as its underlying goal is to help others realize their divine potential in some form. As Jesus says in the Gospel of Matthew, "By their fruits will you know them." And in many of his parables, he places acts of compassion above religious practices. Your compassionate acts are the physical manifestation of all the inner spiritual work you are doing. The Apostle James, in his letter to fellow Jewish Christians, asks, "How does it help, my brothers, when someone who has never done a single good act claims to have faith? Will that faith bring salvation? If one of the brothers or one of the sisters is in need of clothes and not has enough food to live on, and one of you says to them, 'I wish you well, keep yourself warm, eat plenty,' without giving them these bare necessities of life, then what good is that? In the same way, faith, if good deeds do not go with it, is quite dead. It is my deeds that I will show you my faith." Like Jesus, James was steeped in the Jewish tradition that values compassion so highly. The Hebrew word mitzvah refers to any of the hundreds of commandments Jews are traditionally bound to follow. But in customary usage, mitzvah means an act of kindness. And the third level of sacred contracts, renaming. You assume a new name or role with spiritual significance. After God established his covenant with Abram, he gave him the name Abraham and renamed his wife Sarah to signify his expanded role as father of a great nation. Although the name had a literal new meaning, its deeper significance lay in Abram's reorientation from a traditional clan patriarch to the sire, not only a new nation, but of a new spiritual paradigm. As Thomas Cahill describes in his book, The Gift of the Jews, the paradigm includes the Jewish people's belief in a unified universe that makes sense, in which each individual has value and significance. Each individual has value and significance. Each individual has value and significance, as opposed to the impersonal, compassionless ethos of the polytheism of his day. The descendants of Abraham, according to Cahill, gave us even more than that. They gave us the conscious of the West, the belief that this God who is one is not the God of outward show, but the still small voice of consciousness, the God of compassion, the God who will be there, the God who cares about each of his creatures, especially the human beings he created in his own image, and that he insists we do the same. In Roman Catholic tradition, boys and girls at about the age of 13 take a new confirmation name for the ceremony in which they are confirmed in their faith. Like the bar and the bas mitzvah of Jewish tradition, this ceremony is an echo of ancient initiation ritual. A significant number of adults have undergone renaming rituals as well, often as a result of embarking on consciously spiritual path. Initiates into the various branches of Buddhism, Sufism, yoga, Vedanta, and other mystical traditions, too, may take on or given names in the ritual language of their respective tradition to indicate the new spiritual identity. When Neem Korolai Baba gave Richard Alpert the spiritual name Ram Dass, it marked Alpert's entry into a life of devotion and to spiritual needs of other people. Most of us, why are you chewing on this? Give me this. He likes to chew on my art supplies. He gets up on the coffee table and gets them. Okay. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let's see. Now, where was I? Most of us, of course, do not assume an actual name when we embark on our path. And yet, you may feel significantly changed. I said no, and you get up on the table and get it again? No, this is a no. 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 Most of us, of course, do not assume the actual name when we embark on a path, and yet you may feel significantly changed and may signal that change in a variety of ways. You may create a home or a home altar or other sacred space where you live. Set time aside each day for prayer and meditation. Work with a teacher or spiritual director to guide your development. Create or join a small community of like-minded souls that meet regularly to advance your spiritual practice, or change your direct or other habits to reflect the new self that you feel emerging within you. In the sense that a name signifies an identity, these changes in spiritual identity are the metaphorical equivalent of the renaming. And then the last two are assignments and surrender, so I'm going to read those. 4. Assignments. Throughout life, you encounter extraordinary opportunities and challenges that require continual transitions and adjustments. Abraham was a clan leader and a man of some means, yet nothing in his past seem to indicate that he just put the stuff away, Mom, and I can do the dishes, okay?
Well, it's just, okay.
What?
Oh, there's 2 glasses and a.
Right, in the pan and the bowl and stuff.
Oh,
I
I
can.
washed the pan.
Oh, you did, okay. Well, do whatever you want, but just as long as you put the food away.
Yeah.
Abraham was a clan leader and a man of some means, yet nothing in his past seems to indicate that he would father 2 nations of people, as well as 2 of the great spiritual traditions in history, Judaism and Islam. Abraham's assignments included challenges that were both physical, traveling to a new land, and emotional, intellectual, dealing with Pharaoh and other foreign leaders. In a vividly detailed scene in Genesis 18, he even took up upon himself to argue with the Lord that the lives of the righteous in Sodom and Gomorrah should be spared, though he himself was but dust and ashes. The extent to which he accepted and handled all his challenges as a man and soul makes him a worthy model for coming to terms with a contract. At crucial points in our lives, we are placed in situations that require of us unaccustomed skill, courage, or wisdom. Such moments are indications that our sacred contract is in play. But how we respond to these moments is up to us. We grow primarily through our challenges, especially those life-changing moments when we begin to recognize aspects of our nature that makes us different from the family and culture in which we have been raised. Swimming against the current, which may begin as adolescent rebelliousness, but later provides valuable opportunities for artistic, political, or spiritual expression, becomes part of our energy vocabulary. Examine your own life and look for unusual challenges that presented themselves and that seem to go against the grain, more or less forcing you to make changes that you might not otherwise have made. Often we are unhappy with how well we respond to such challenges and opportunities. But total competence, success, or victory isn't always necessary as long as you make some response. The old truism, whatever doesn't kill you, makes you stronger, well may apply. Don't be overly harsh in your self-assessment, but look for unexpected results. By his own account, Christopher Reeves wanted to die after a riding accident left him a quadriplegic, and he asked his wife to pull the plug on his respirator. But in time, he came to the point where he chose not only to live, but to show other people how to live. He chose to embody the truth that your value as a human soul does not decline just because your body is seriously impaired. He accepted what was necessary to reach his highest potential. It's quite possible that he would not have been able to do that if he had not been injured. Although his track record before the accident already shows an orientation to higher goals, still, the sight of Superman in a wheelchair is an image of such archetypical power that alone has doubtless caused many people to rethink their own lives. Surrender. You are given ongoing tests that ask the question, which world will you choose to follow? That of the divine or that of the earth? Abraham's son Isaac meant everything to him. Yet when God told Abraham to sacrifice the boy, he set out to do what he asked. Although the command was the most difficult order of his life and clearly seemed to go against his best interests, Abraham chose to follow the voice of the divine. Abraham's response is indicative of the faith you need to have that your contract will never ask more of you than you are able to give. You will never finish the process of choice and surrender until you have surrendered all to the will of the divine. Just when you feel you've reached your limits, you are pushed further. Perhaps your career or relationship means to decline faster, for instance, the harder you try to revive it. Then maybe you decide to let God take over your life's direction. Come what may, and it takes off, but in an unexpected direction. Or perhaps you feel an inner urging to try a more creative line of work that is financially risky, but could repay you with a deeper sense of fulfillment. Should you follow your intuition? Perhaps you feel drawn to include more spiritual activity in your daily life. Even as your rational mind is saying that you should be putting in more time at work, earning more money, laying away a retirement nest egg, this is where you need to combine intuition and intellect and use a symbolic perspective of your internal and external urgings so that you can discern the voice of the divine within. We'll talk more about how to develop your symbolic sight in later chapters. All 5 stages of your contract overlap and interweave throughout the arc of your life. And this is especially true of the stage of surrender. Abraham surrendered to God's will when he followed his voice and left home at an advanced age. He continued to surrender as the voice of the divine within led him through Egypt into Canaan, when he had to lead an army to rescue his brother Lot from captivity and invading forces. And when his rational mind told him that it was impossible for him at 100 and Sarah at 90 to have a child, the order to sacrifice his son was perhaps the greatest act of surrender in response to his toughest challenge. As we continue to examine how these 5 stages unfolded in the lives of the great spiritual leaders, Jesus, Muhammad, and the Buddha, please look for ways in which the stages apply to your own life. Don't focus only on the extraordinary details of their careers, but also on their symbolic meaning and underlying truths. For one extraordinary paradox lies at the heart of each of their histories. Although they were uncertain of their sacred contracts at key points along the way and sometimes questioned or even asked to be released from it, they nonetheless surrendered to the divine will at each of these points. And then we'll read about an archetype. We are on the clown. court jester, fool, dumbling. The clown archetype is associated with three major characteristics: making people laugh, making them cry, and wearing a mask that covers one's own real emotions. The clown is generally male, with few women playing the role either in literature or in theater. This may well be explained by the social attitude that associates weakness and loss of control with a man who expresses emotions. Therefore, the man has to wear a mask, which often portrays a crying face. The clown reflects the emotions of the crowd, making an audience laugh by satirizing something they can relate to collectively, or by acting out social absurdities. In general, the messages communicated through a clown's humor are deeply serious and often critical of the hypocrisy in an individual or in some area of society. Because of the mask he wears, the clown is allowed, indeed expected, to cross the boundaries of social acceptance, representing what people would like to do or say themselves. The court jester or fool is the manifestation of the clown in a royal setting. Since no one can possibly take a fool seriously at the physical level, he is allowed entry into the most powerful of circles. While entertaining the king with outrageous behavior, the fool is actually communicating messages that the king trusts. Political satirists often have dominant court gesture archetypes, revealing the motivations of the highest officials in the nation in a manner that is generally granted freedom from the legal retribution that might be leveled against an ordinary citizen making the same comments. Related to the fool is the dumbling, the fairy tale character who, although often simple-minded, acts with a good heart and is usually rewarded for it. Modern film characters such as Forrest Gump and Nurse Betty embody this aspect of the archetype, which does not so much impart wisdom as foster living with kindness and simplicity. The shadow aspect of the clown, or the fool, manifests as cruel personal mockery or betrayal. Specifically, the breaking of confidences gained through knowledge from the inner circle. In reviewing your relationship with this archetype, consider your use of humor in association with power. Since everyone is prone to jesting, you are looking for a connection to a pattern of behavior that is fundamental to your personal protection and survival. If distinguishing clown from fool, note that the fool is connected to arenas of power, while the clown does his best work as an everyman, like Ralph Kratom in The Honeymooners. Reflect on whether clowning around is an essential channel for expressing your emotions over and above simple play. Ask yourself if, like the fool, you carry truth into closed circles or closed minds. Films: Danny Kaye in The Court Jester, Buster Keaton in The Navigator, Sherlock Jr. in The General, Charlie Chaplin, The Circus and the Gold Rush, Giulietta Massina in La Strada, Barbra Streisand in What's Up, Doc, Renee Zellweger, Nurse Betty, Woody Allen, Zelig. Drama: He Who Gets Slapped by Maxim Gorky, opera, I Paligai by Leon Vacalo, literature, Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, Gimple the Fool by Isaac Bashevis, singer, Holly Fools and Mad Hatters by Edward Hayes, the autobiography of Henry, I don't know this Roman numeral, Henry something, with the notes by his fool, Will Sommers by Margaret George. Religion and Myth, Mullah Nasrullah, aka Oja Nasreddin, Sufi figure in Egypt, Iran, and Turkey, half saint, half fool, who acts like a ninny to teach wisdom. Sir Dagonet, the fool of King Arthur, who was knighted as a joke, but who also performed bravely in tournaments. Heyoka, in Lakota Sioux lore, someone who does something backwards to teach people not to take themselves too seriously. Coyote, in Native American lore.